Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing another type of bread recipe with you all, and this one is for a garlic and herb bread. Now I'm telling you guys, this is some of the most flavorful bread that you will make at home. It is so delicious and so quick and simple to put together. I hope I made this process as simple as possible, and I hope you guys get in your kitchen and try it out for yourselves. The ingredients that I'm going to need for my garlic and herb bread today is of course some all-purpose flour. I'm going to use some salt, and this is salt to taste. I'm also going to go in with some yeast, some ground flax seeds. This right here is optional. If you wanted to add more like healthy ingredients, you could add some flax seeds like I'm doing. You can go ahead and do hemp seeds. You could do sesame seeds. The possibilities are really endless. I also have a little bit of sugar. This is just going to help me activate that yeast. And of course for my fats, I have a little bit of Crisco or vegetable shortening, and I have some butter. Now the butter is softened and the Crisco is softened just to make it easier for me to combine into my dough. So these are all of the ingredients that are going to be needed to make a basic bread dough, but I'm going to go into all of the seasonings and the herbs that I'm going to be using in my bread in the next clip. Now that we've reviewed all of the regular ingredients that we're going to use to make our bread, I'm going to go into all of the seasonings that I'm going to use to put into my bread as well. So for my herbs that I'm going to use, I have stuff that I've found around the house that I had in my fridge. If you have anything different, or if you do not want to use some of these, or if you want to add something else in, feel free to do so and make it to your taste, because of course, since you're making it, you want to make it to your taste. So for my bread, I am going to use some scallions. I'm going to use some parsley. I'm going to use a little bit of culantro that I have. You can replace that with cilantro. I have some thyme. I have some garlic, and this is going to give it a really nice flavor. I like any type of bread with garlic on the inside. And I have some fresh basil. Now all of these herbs, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and wash them, and along with the garlic, I'm just going to chop them up very finely so this way they can go in the bread dough. And then I'm going to come back and show you guys what to do next. So the first step when making the bread is to go ahead and activate the yeast. So into my bowl here, I'm going to go in with all of my yeast. I'm also going to go in with some water, and you want the water to be pretty warm, about 100 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So this way that yeast can activate properly. Once you've added in all of your yeast, you're going to go on top with that sugar that I mentioned in the ingredients. And you're just going to go ahead and stir it all up until the sugar and that yeast is dissolved for the most part into that water. So what I'm going to do now is allow this to rest in a warm place for about 10 to 15 minutes, or just until it starts to get very bubbly on the top. That's how you know your yeast has been activated. So today, in order to make my bread, I'm going to use my KitchenAid mixer. Now, of course, you always see me make my bread and my doughs by hand. That's just because I like to get the feel of the dough. But today, I wanted to go ahead and demonstrate it with the mixer, because a lot of you guys love using your mixers at home. It's a great gadget, and it saves a lot of time when you go to knead your dough. So into the mixer bowl, I'm going to go in with all of my all-purpose flour. And once you go in with all of your flour, you're going to go in with your salt. And since this is more of a savory bread, I'm going in with a good amount of salt to taste. And once you add in all of that salt, you're going to go in with your ground flax seeds, or whatever other seeds or ingredients that you want to add in. So once you add those ingredients in, you're going to lock your mixer, and you're going to put it on just to stir them around a little bit and get them all married together. Once you get those dry ingredients mixed up really well, I'm going to go in with all of my butter and my shortening. Now, a lot of you guys always ask if you guys can replace one for the other. You can always replace one for the other. It really doesn't make too much of a difference. I just like using both. If you wanted to use all butter, feel free to do so. If you wanted to use all Crisco, feel free to do so. Yeah, and if you want to mix it, you can go ahead and mix it like I'm doing. So once you add that in, what you're going to go ahead and do is lock your mixer again, and you're going to allow this to mix until the butter and that shortening are combined throughout the dough. After about 15 minutes, you're going to see that your yeast mixture has started to bubble up a lot on the top. You can see it's very frothy and foamy on the top. So once you mix in all of that butter and the shortening into your mixer, what you're going to go ahead and do is add in all of this yeast mixture. Now you want to make sure to only add the yeast mixture once it has proofed and once it has been activated. This is called blooming the yeast. And once you add that mixture in, what you're going to go ahead and do is add in some water. Go in with a little bit, and we're only adding a little bit for now. We can keep on adding as time goes on, and we want to get basically a really nice soft dough. So you're going to put the mixer on, allow it to mix really well until the dough comes together with enough water. Now, of course, all of my ingredients and all of my measurements will be down in the description box below. So as you guys can see, the dough is still a little bit dry, even though I added that water and the yeast. So I'm going in with some more water, and I'm going to keep on mixing, and if it needs more water, I'm going to add it in. Once you see that your dough has come together in one ball and it's a really nice soft dough like this, it might even be sticking to your hand just a little bit, what you're going to do is keep your mixer on a low speed, and you're going to allow this to mix for about 10 minutes, or allow it to knead until the dough is very smooth and very pliable. So I'm going to go ahead and start it on the kneading process, and then I'll come back and show you guys what it looks like. So my dough has been kneading for about 10 minutes now, and it's a beautiful, soft and stretchy dough, not really sticking to my hands anymore, as you guys can see when I squeeze it. So what I'm going to do now is add in all of my herbs and seasonings. Now the reason why I did not add them in while the dough is mixing was just because all of those herbs, some of them can be very delicate, and if I added them in, they would have started to bruise, and if they bruised, then the whole bread would have turned green just because of all of the color of the herbs. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add in all of the herbs and the seasonings that I chopped up. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is add in my thyme. I'm going to go in with my culantro, and as I said, you could use cilantro. I'm going in with my basil that I had. And I forgot to mention, but I also had a little bit of rosemary, so I'm adding that in. I'm also going to add in my parsley. I'm going to add in my scallions. And of course, I'm going to add in all of that garlic that I chopped very finely. Now I chopped all of these herbs because I want the flavor to distribute really well throughout the dough. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close the mixer back, lock it, and I'm going to allow this to mix on a very low speed until all of those herbs are combined. So I'm going to mix it for about 2 more minutes, and then it'll be done and it'll be ready to rest. So my dough has come together beautifully. As you guys can see, it's a nice soft and stretchy dough. It's not sticking to my hand anymore, but it is still very soft and pliable. All of those herbs and the garlic have mixed through really well. And as you guys can see, by adding them at the end, none of them have bruised. They've just mixed in perfectly throughout the dough. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to prepare it so this way it can start to rest, and I'm going to show you guys what that looks like. So in order to allow the dough to rise, since it's a pretty sticky dough and a soft dough, you do not want it to stick in whatever bowl you put it in to rise. So I'm going to coat the sides with just a little bit of olive oil. You want to make sure to get it well distributed throughout the bowl, on the sides. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ball of dough straight from my mixer bowl. And what you're going to want to do is get it into a nice uniform ball. And as you guys can see, it is really not sticking to my hands. This is a perfectly soft and just beautiful dough. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it into my bowl here. I'm going to coat it with a little bit more olive oil. And you just want to dab it all around the top. You can go ahead and roll it around just a little bit in the bowl. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cover this with some plastic wrap, and I'm going to leave it in a warm place. So either in your microwave, you could put it in your oven that is not on, and I'm just going to allow it to rise for about an hour to an hour and a half, or just until it doubles in size. So I'll come back and show you guys what it looks like. So my garlic and herb bread has been rising for about an hour and a half now, and as you guys can see, it's very fluffy and it's doubled in size. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you guys how to shape it and get it into the oven. Alright, so I'm going to take my dough, I'm going to put it on my board, and I'm going to split it into 3 sections, and you want to make them as equal as possible. We're going to make one large loaf. We're going to make like a braided loaf, almost like a flatbread. So what you're going to do with this one piece of dough is you're going to go ahead, get it into a log, and you are going to roll it out until it becomes a thinner log. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same with all 3 pieces of my dough, and I'm going to lie them down on my baking tray and show you guys what it looks like. So once you get your dough into 3 even logs, what you're going to want to do is go ahead and join all of the ends together. And then you're going to go ahead and create a pretty tight braid. So I'm going to continue braiding the bread just like I would braid my normal flatbread. And I'm going to come back and show you guys exactly what it looks like. So this is what the bread looks like once I finish braiding it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover it with a tea towel and allow it to sit for about 20 minutes to 30 minutes and allow it to get a little fluffier again, just to rise a little bit, because if you stuck it in the oven during this stage, it wouldn't rise as properly as it should. So I'm going to allow it to rise for a couple more minutes, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like when it's ready to go into the oven. So my garlic and herb loaf has been resting for about another 25 minutes after I had made it into this shape. And as you guys can see, it's gotten just a little bit fluffier than it was before. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stick it in my oven that's been preheated at 350 degrees. I'm going to cook it from anywhere from 20 to 25 minutes, maybe a little less time, maybe a little longer. It totally depends on your oven. It depends on how big you made the bread. And it also depends on the humidity, all that kind of stuff. So you just want to keep on watching it, regulate that heat in the oven. And if it gets too hot, lower the heat of the oven. And if it's not cooking fast enough, you could always crank up the oven just a little bit. But you want to be mindful, get to know your oven a little bit, so this way this can cook nice and evenly. Once it is beautiful and golden brown on the top and golden brown on the bottom, that's how you know that it is all done and ready to eat. Alright guys, so I just pulled my garlic and herb bread out of the oven. As you guys can see, it has a beautiful golden brown color all over the outside. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to allow it to cool for the most part, so this way we can be able to cut into it easier. I also wanted to mention it's very important that you let your breads cool down whenever you're done baking it before you cut it, because if you cut into it right away, the bread will basically collapse and then it's going to become very gummy in texture. It's never going to be fluffy anymore. So make sure you let it rest and then we can go ahead and cut into it. So whenever you're making bread and it comes out of the oven, you have to brush it with some butter as soon as it comes out. You want to make sure it's nice and glistening. Butter helps it from not drying out when it first comes out of the oven. So just butter it really well. And what I'm going to do is allow this to cool all the way until when it's just slightly warm, and then I can cut into it. Alright guys, so the bread has cooled down for the most part and it is ready to be cut into. So you want to go ahead and get yourself a serrated knife, or the knife with all of the little jagged edges, and you're going to cut into it and you're going to serve. I recommend serving this bread with a nice slab of butter in the middle. You could serve it with a slice of cheese in the middle. You could also use it to eat your pepper pot with. That's what I did when I made this. And I have that pepper pot recipe up on my channel. I promise you it is the best pepper pot recipe you'll ever get on this internet. So go ahead and check that out. I'll have it linked right up here in the right hand corner. And that's pretty much it guys. I really hope you enjoyed this bread recipe. I wanted to show you guys how fluffy and amazing this garlic and herb bread look. And I promise you it tastes so flavorful with all of those beautiful herbs on the inside. So I hope you guys give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. And of course leave those beautiful comments down below. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye everyone.